Welcome to MojoPlays, and today we're looking at the hardest areas and dungeons in the Final Fantasy series. From intricate mazes and daunting ancient ruins, these are the hardest areas to traverse in the long-running JRPG franchise. Before we get started, we post new videos all week long, so be sure to subscribe to MojoPlays and ring that bell to be notified about our latest videos. X Death's Castle, Final Fantasy V. Final Fantasy V has its fair share of difficult sections, but X Death's Castle towards the middle of the game can be quite the gauntlet. It offers little to no reprieve from the tough monsters you fight in the random encounters, and it's one of the longest and most maze-like areas in the whole game. You visit the castle a couple times throughout your adventure, and despite the difficult and grindy nature, it's a great location to build out your party and level up jobs. The Great Glacier, Final Fantasy VII. The entire northern continent in Final Fantasy VII is pretty unforgiving, but the Great Glacier area truly takes the cake here. Don't let the sweet snowboarding minigame fool you. This area is quite the challenge. The Great Glacier itself is a frozen wasteland filled to the brim with both tough enemies and annoying mechanics, puzzles, and a maze-like layout. After snowboarding, the party gets separated and must brave the brutal temperatures on their way up to Gaia's cliffs. You can't wander around forever though, and around 544 steps, Cloud passes out and wakes up in the cabin of one Mr. Hulzoth. Good luck navigating this frozen hellhole. Ultimecia Castle, Final Fantasy VIII. The last dungeon in Final Fantasy VIII is also the game's most difficult. Similar to Final Fantasy VI's final dungeon, Kefka's Tower, more on that in a bit, Ultimicia's Castle sports a maze-like and non-linear design where you can split up into two parties to explore it. The difficult and most annoying part here is that your abilities are locked upon entering and will only unlock again after defeating the various bosses scattered throughout the castle. Without your full endgame build, it can be pretty tough to slog through the random encounters and even take out the first couple of bosses. On top of this, the fight against Ultimishia herself poses its own set of challenges. The Jade Passage and Pandemonium, Final Fantasy II. The Jade Passage from Final Fantasy's sophomore outing is the bridge between the world and Pandemonium, also fittingly known as the Castle of Hell. It's one of the most intricate and confusing areas from this phase of Final Fantasy games, and is the game's longest. The powerful enemies you fight in the random encounters only add to the challenge, since rest areas are few and far between as well. If you're strong enough to defeat King Behemoth, however, it'll drop the Rune Axe, which is one of the most powerful weapons in the game. And with the pixel remasters, you now have a local map to help you navigate this labyrinth. Omega Ruins, Final Fantasy X. The Omega Ruins in Final Fantasy X is an enormous optional dungeon that becomes accessible closer to the end of the game. You have to find the correct coordinates from the airship to get there, and when you do, you are in for a surprise. There's no local map, so you have to navigate it blindly and map it out yourself while contending with some of the most powerful monsters in the game, like the Great Malboro, Mimics, and Master Tonberry. The risk is well worth the reward here, as some of the game's best spheres and items can be found here. Once you reach the end, I hope you're prepared for two tough boss fights in the Ultima and Omega weapons. Lodestone Cavern, Final Fantasy IV. Final Fantasy IV is probably the easiest entry overall, but the Lodestone Cavern, also known as the Magnetic Cave, is one of the worst design choices in the history of the franchise. As the name suggests, Cecil and friends have to delve into a magnetic cave to take out the thieving dark elf who took the Earth Crystal from Troya. From a gameplay perspective, this means that the party will have to unequip any weapons and armor made of metal. That's right, a typical fantasy game where you only use metal weapons and armor is now a roadblock. So what do? Luckily, Yang's claws, most elemental staves, bows, and clothing don't count as metal. So head back to Troya, stock up, and trudge through this extremely annoying dungeon to re-equip your precious mithril gear. Earth Cave, Final Fantasy. The Earth Cave, also known as the Cavern of Earth or Terra Cavern depending on which version you're playing, is a dungeon about midway through the original Final Fantasy. Yet another labyrinthian maze, the Earth Cave is the lair of the Lich, the Fiend of Earth who the Warriors of Light must defeat to purify the Earth Crystal. Typical Final Fantasy stuff here. The enemies hit like trucks, and the rest points are sparse. There's a small section near the entrance, however, that'll allow you to fight giants fairly often, making it a great place to grind. Once you reach the Lich, the first truly difficult boss battle of the game, make sure you're prepared to withstand his elemental magic. Via Infinito, Final Fantasy X-2. Final Fantasy X-2 is a spin-off sequel that in some ways breaks away from traditional Final Fantasy elements. One constant, however, is the inclusion of a ridiculously tough optional dungeon. Enter Via Infinito. This dungeon, hidden beneath the city of Bavel, is a 100-floor trial broken up into cloisters of 20. Despite the challenge, it's a great way to fill out the bestiary and level up, as well as nab some powerful gear. At the end, on the 100th floor, you'll take on the dungeon's super bosses Paragon and Trema. Also, bosses from previous cloisters appear as random encounter enemies on this floor, so be prepared. Pitioss Ruins, Final Fantasy XV. Knock knock, who's there? That's right, it's another massive optional Final Fantasy dungeon. Accessible only at night and once the party gets the Regalia Type F, and only after you complete the Stealing the Past side quest, the Pitioss Ruins are the toughest area in the game. Some people even claim to have taken almost 10 hours to get through it, which is extra frustrating as you can't save inside the dungeon. Also, you only play as Noctis, your buddies wait outside patiently. Interestingly, there are no combat encounters either. This is a platforming challenge that tasks you with landing some pretty hard jumps, and many rooms defy the laws of physics with some rotating 45 degrees. If you're savvy enough to make it through, the items you find throughout the dungeon are a great addition to your arsenal for the other tough challenges the game offers. Kefka's Tower, Final Fantasy VI. The final dungeon in Final Fantasy VI, Kefka's Tower, is a gauntlet for the ages. This is where the game's true villain Kefka resides in the world of ruin, accessible as soon as you once again get the Falcon airship, meaning you can technically take on the final challenge without a full party. Obviously, we recommend taking the time to explore the world and gather your party back up, including the optional Mog, Gogo, and Umado, as you'll have to divide all your party members up into 3 parties to traverse the horrifying tower. Once you reach the top, you'll face Kefka once and for all, and this multi-form fight is nothing to scoff at. Did we miss any difficult areas that gave you trouble? Let us know down in the comments.